the idea that I might be lying was the only lie there. This nervousness is great. This is awesome. This is what life is about. And the moment that that played in the theater, a red flag went up in my head. Hey there, it's Coach Kimlat, and today I'm going to be watching my second appearance on Penn and Teller Fool Us. I'll be talking about what was going on in my head. I'll give you some behind-the-scenes information. I've been reading the comments. I haven't watched the video in a long time, so I'm going to watch it again with you and tell you about what was happening. So let's do it. Let's dive in. So, you know, Allison was great. I got to see her briefly before walking onto the stage, and she was very, very nice. And I thought she was really friendly and very engaging and interactive this time around. The crew that filmed the introduction video with me was very helpful. They were really cool. We talked about different kinds of ideas. They really wanted to talk about what happened last time to remind the story. Now, a question that people ask me is, do Penn and Teller see the video, this introduction video, when it plays? And the answer is yes and no. So. It's so funny.
Nerve-wracking and amazing experience at the same time.
And I'll tell you more about that in just a second. Let me pause this, because at this moment I make one mistake.
Penn and Teller a second time. In magic, there's a method and an effect. The reason the guys got so angry is because I did an effect they knew using a method they didn't. This time, I'm performing a trick that I created when I was 18 years old and have been practicing ever since. So far, only 2 magicians.
And there was my mistake right there. I said that this is a trick that I've been practicing since I was 18 years old. And as many people commented online, that if I hadn't said that, then probably they would not have known that it was a difficult skill that I was doing. I think that's 100% absolutely right. So let me give you some background on this. They usually film 4 performers per episode, and they will only show the background piece, this little introduction piece, for one of those performers, because they film them right around the same time, and they only have time to edit one right away, and then they show that to the audience, and they get the shot of the audience watching this introduction clip. So the first time I was on the show, they didn't show my actual introduction. The second time around, they wanted to show my introduction because they wanted to remind Penn and Teller of what happened last time. And so they record a lot, they ask you a lot of questions, they ask me about the trick, and so I mentioned the thing about doing this since I was 18 years old. And the moment that that played in the theater, a red flag went up in my head, and I said, oh, I wish I wouldn't have recorded that. So everyone who commented that, you are 100% correct. That was a little tip-off for them that this was more of a skill than a clever trick. So that was a little fun thing. But what I do love about this introduction is that I get to talk about what I talk to business groups about, which is method and effect. And so I get to mention this in the little introduction, and throughout the presentation I get to refer to that. So I'll come back to that later on. Now at this point, there's several different magicians that have fooled them twice now, but at the time of the recording, only 2. So Allison introduces me, and I'm standing there in the middle of the stage. Of course, that image that you see, the cartoon there, that was a big surprise to me. When I walked on, they showed me that that's what they did. That was really cool. You know, I really didn't want to push the fact that, like, oh, I've already fooled you, I'm going to try to fool you again. I really just want to focus on the performance. But of course, because the first Fooler was such a viral video and it got such a great reaction, they really wanted to emphasize that. So I went along with that. So that's what you see the picture in the back. And also at this moment, I didn't walk onto the stage. I'd actually been standing there for a good 3 minutes. So I walk on stage, waiting for them to start recording everything. Then they play the video. And so I'm watching Penn and Teller watch the video. And as Penn mentioned at the end of this video, we're also friends now. We've hung out many times. So I just came out smiling, beaming, just like excited, just happy to be there with them and feeling that energy. So at that moment, now like 3 minutes have passed, and I'm getting a little antsy. I'm like, let's start the trick. So we start.
Thank you, Penn and Teller. Wow, it's amazing to be back here in Vegas. Allison, I'd love it if you come join me over here.
Sure.
I'm so happy that you're here.
Yeah, I'm happy you're here.
And that stage is huge. It takes a long time
these guys is
to
one
walk
of the
over
hardest
there.
things that a magician can do.
Or me.
That's true. Well, no.
And she said, or me for a second. It's kind of a little confusing. I think she meant like for her confusing it. And in my head, I thought she meant like performing for her is difficult. And so right away, you know, I had a script. Like every word, every gesture, every movement here has been rehearsed and polished over months and weeks. And then you start off, and it takes her a second longer to walk across the stage. Then she says something that you don't expect. So everything, you just have to react and kind of go along with the flow while trying to stay focused, being aware that there's all these cameras on you. and everything else. But I thought she was just delightful this time around.
Or for
She's
anyone
great.
else in the theater, there would be no stress.
Yeah.
I'll show you. Look, I'm going to have you pick a card.
Okay.
Anytime you like, just say stop.
Stop.
Remember that card. Okay.
Yes.
You've got it.
Yes.
Okay, because I don't know what it is.
Okay.
But the moment that you say it out loud,
Now-
your card will fly out of the deck, and I will catch it at my fingertips.
I have to tell you
Okay.
that this is probably one of the least kind of things people pay attention to in the trick. But right there in the last few seconds, I just did some of the most advanced card control and card magic that I could do. And it was incredibly difficult, but I went for more difficult techniques. But yet the irony of it, and which is kind of my statement for this whole entire trick, is that people don't know how hard magicians work because our job is usually to hide the method. And that part right there, no one ever comments, no one talks about. Only magicians can appreciate that I did certain advanced techniques in order to control the card where I needed to. And the way my hand drops, the way my shoulders are, again, every little detail is important in order to communicate tension versus relaxation, get people to relax when you're doing the move. There's a lot of really cool stuff about sleight of hand. It's not just about the cards in my hand, but it's about the whole body.
It'll happen in just a blink of an eye. Are you ready?
Yes.
Allison, name your card.
6 of clubs. Wow.
The 6 of clubs. Pretty cool.
So I do a technique by Leonard Green, and again, they're kind of partly like golf clap, and that's what I wanted.
These guys, look, they're not fooled, right? They know exactly how my fingers manipulated the
Their faces
cards.
are so
They
great.
know where it was.
Now,
They know.
the interesting thing is that the reason I did this trick first is because it's essentially a parallel to what I'm going to do later. They name their card out loud, and the card appears at the fingertips. However, I'm using two very different techniques this time and the next time. But if I were just to dribble and catch the card, that trick would take 30 seconds, and that wouldn't be great TV. So, I turned this into a longer routine, and this idea of doing this one way, which to me is actually a much easier way to do it, but the irony is that when I do this in the real world, it gets huge reactions because people don't know that I may be doing something that's easier or more difficult.
They know where it was.
Irony
They
of
know
magic.
how it flew out of the deck. If I'm going to fool these guys with the same trick, I have to do more than just sleight of hand. I have to be clever. I have to be sneaky. I might even have to
Clever
lie
and sneaky.
just a little.
I might even have to lie just
I know.
a little. Yeah.
So I'm going to do the same trick
That
for
was
them,
an
but
interesting
Penn,
line to
you remember
write
what
and to
happened
work
last
on.
time I was here? I do. Yeah, he picked up a chair.
No, I don't think I can protect you very well.
No, I need you here as my...
So the thing about that line is that the only lie that my goal was to tell only one lie in the whole entire performance piece, and that was it right there. The idea that I might be lying was the only lie there, because I'm telling the truth throughout this whole entire process. And that was something really important to me. I picked out a trick that I wanted to do, that I'd created myself. And as I was preparing for this trick, I thought about, just like the first time, what's the worst thing that can happen? And the worst thing that can happen is that I do a trick and people online reveal the trick and they talk about how it's done. And so I thought, what I have to do is I have to do the most difficult trick that I can. So that the worst thing that might happen is they might watch the performance at the end and go, we know exactly how you did it. It was very difficult. You practiced sleight of hand. And so that was my thinking behind it for
No, I need you
selecting
here as my bodyguard,
this
please.
specific trick as
Tell
well.
her just sat there giggling last time, did nothing. So how about this? You're going to stick with me, at least as my emotional support.
Yes.
And I'd love it if the gentleman could join us up here. Everyone, please
Now,
welcome
I'm
Penn
going
and
through
Tyler
again my
to the
script
stage.
and I'm interacting with
Allison,
Allison.
come on over.
But in my head, I'm like, okay, are they looking? Are they reacting? They're so far away, too, I can't see their faces.
Great to see you. Great to see you.
So now I bring him up. He calls me
let's
Red
get
Bastard
comfortable.
again.
Gentlemen, I'm going to perform the same trick for you as I just
The
did
seating
for
was-
Allison. I'm going to...
The seating was a little bit different, but again, what I really wanted was I wanted them on my side. I wanted everyone to see their faces. Angles weren't an issue here, but I just like kind of the setup that we have here, and I wanted Allison to be a part of it. And now I say this line where I'm going to do the same trick for you now that I just did for Allison a second ago, which from an effect perspective is 100% true. If you were not thinking about method and how I do this, it would look
Allison.
identical
I'm going
to
to have you
I'm
pick a
able to
card,
catch a card.
and then I will catch it at my fingertips. But I have to use a different method. And I know that the moment I tell you that, your brain starts thinking of all the possible ways I could do this. So right now, Teller is burning my
Allison's
hands.
great.
That means he's watching my every move.
Teller's
He's making
authentic,
sure
because I remember
that
the first
don't
time he was
switch this
burning
deck
my
of cards
hands.
for a different one with all the same cards.
And so here, I'm
Penn,
doing some
meanwhile, he's burning the
unnecessary
cards.
moves.
He's looking
I
at the
did some
corners to make
false
sure
cuts
that I
here
haven't
to make them
cut
think that
any
the
of
deck
them
needs to be in order.
make them easier to get to.
I also want to point out this: why the scissors and why all this extra stuff that I'm bringing up. I don't know if many people realize it, but all of these things that I'm about to bring out right now and mention are actual methods, are ways that I could accomplish the same exact effect. And one of the things that happened to me is that I created this trick a long time ago, and another magician at some point decided to share his version and sell his version to magicians, but it was a much cheaper, if you will, version because it used one of these little things. It was something simple. And so I remember it kind of bothered me because here I am doing the real work, the very difficult method, but no one can know about it. I have to hide it. And so this was my chance to go on TV and have the method revealed, and also to kind of mention that I'm not using any of these easier ways of
Or
creating
maybe
the
I
trick.
file down the edges in order to make one card stand out from the others. Maybe I used glue
Alyssa looking
on the
so
edges of
closely.
my fingers in order to make it easier to catch
So the
that card.
glue on the
That
fingertips,
would be
that maybe
clever.
is the only thing that's
Or
a
better
stretch.
yet,
That's not
I
really,
have
we don't do that.
magnets in
But
my
we can shave
fingertips
cards,
that
so we
allow
can
me
cut
to
cards.
capture that card.
That is a magnetic
Yeah, maybe I
joker
do,
right
maybe I
there.
do. Maybe I
Total
don't.
throwaway
That's not
visual
for me
just to
say.
throw them off. I put it
So
away in my pocket. Some people online are like, oh, you put the card in your pocket. It has nothing to do with anything. It's just what we call a shimmed card. It's got a metal inside of it, and so I was able to pick it up with a magnet and put it away. Again, all of this is relevant, but it's making the presentation more. It's giving them things to think about. You can see how much they're smiling right now because they're thinking, okay, all this stuff is genuinely
These
possible.
possibilities are there for you to consider. Maybe I'm telling you the truth, and maybe I'm not. Now, I know that doesn't seem fair, but
And the audience
hey,
laughed
you
at
guys
this point.
started
Penn
this
Teller
game.
laughed. And I was glad that line, I
So,
finally liked.
Here's what I'm going to do.
You know, this whole time, I still haven't really gotten them to be as engaging and funny as we did the first time. So finally, when they laughed on that line where, hey, you guys started this game, I felt much better. The theater laughed, I relaxed, and I was like, okay, cool, we're rolling along here. Because at this point, I'm going, okay, Penn is not as enthusiastic as he was the first time, and they're watching me, and man, they are really bent on trying to figure me out. Like, you forget that. You think this is all kind of fun and it's performance, but authentically, when they come out there, they're ready to bust you.
What I'm going to do. I'm going to shuffle these cards, but I won't push them in all the way, leaving some of these cards isolated and out of my control. I'm
So
also
that was
going
a
to
Pharaoh
riff-
shuffle. Magicians call it perfect Pharaoh shuffle. And I had to hit that, and that's one of the hardest moments in this whole entire performance because I got to hit a perfect Pharaoh shuffle, which means essentially that I have to cut the cards exactly at 26 and 26, and then I have to interlace them so that they are alternating one after the other. And magicians have competitions where we sit down and we do this, and we have to do this perfectly 8 times in a row. And that was one of the most nerve-wracking moments for me, was to be able to separate the cards perfectly, Pharaoh them perfectly, and get into the position for the next
to
part.
riffle slowly, so Penn knows I'm not influencing his choice with Jedi mind tricks.
I don't know if you know the
Penn, please say
Jedi
stop.
mind tricks reference. That's like
Stop.
a
Are
code
you
that
happy
Penn
there?
uses before.
One more.
One more? How's that?
Now this is a good thing
Teller, you
because
feeling good about all this? Sure, why not, right?
I went through, I riffled through, and then Penn asked me to go one further, which is great because it's a completely free choice, and I'm glad he decided to do that. I wanted him to know that I'm not using any Jedi mind tricks, I'm not influencing them, so this was perfect. I riffled down, he said stop, I let go of one more, and then he looked at it. And then this is something that later on they reference.
Sure, why not,
where
right?
They're
Now,
like,
very important. Before
we
we go
see you
any
controlling
further,
the cards,
I
and
want
they're
you to
burning
make
my
sure
hands
the card
right
is not
there.
near the top or near the bottom,
I
but
thought I
somewhere
might be able to
within the spread.
misdirect
Now,
them
so
a
we can-
little bit
Oh,
with
so
a
you didn't see
joke,
the card?
but
No.
no.
Now you know how I feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
So are you satisfied? It's in the spread. Very good.
So,
Now, at this moment in time,
a couple of things here. We have, authentically, there's different realities happening. Even you right now watching this, whether you're a magician or you're someone that just loves magic and loves the show Fool Us and you want a little more background information, everyone has different understandings of it. I'm not trying to ruin magic for you. I'm not trying to explain how things are done. But this is the one case where I think that knowing how the trick is done really makes you appreciate magic more. It's very rare that as a magician we get to talk about methods. And you can see there's 2 other videos on my YouTube channel where I show how I practiced it and I really reveal how this trick is done. So you can watch that to really understand the mechanics of it. But the interesting thing about this right now is that I'm trying to create an alternate reality for Penn and Teller in order to fool them. And what I was trying to do right there was I did some unnecessary things. I cut cards in ways that I didn't need to cut, but those cuts communicated something to Penn and Teller. I spread the cards out on the table face up for a long time. What I'm trying to communicate to them is that I'm memorizing the deck. Now, I'm not. And a lot of people who are commenting online think that that's what I did, that I have a superpower memory. I don't. But my goal was to get them to think that I memorized the deck, that I had to keep it in order, and then I have to have them name the card in order for me to know exactly where to grab it. That's not what I do. I don't have to remember the deck. And more importantly, I don't actually have to have him name the card, which he will in a moment. But that was one of the mistakes that I made. And I made this change a day or two before going on camera. I never have someone name the card. I can always do it without it. But I thought that I could fool them if they believed it was a memorized deck, name your card and then I have to put it in there. So it was a good lesson for me to not change things up last minute. But I did, and that's what ended up hurting me. And a lot of people online think like, oh, that's such a simple trick. You know, like even a baby can do this trick. If you name the card, they can just reach in and get it. A child can do it. And well, I guess the child can. So let's continue on.
There are multiple realities happening here on stage. See, Penn and Teller, they're focused on the method of the trick and trying to figure out what I lied to them about. But you and the audience,
yeah, right. There's that lie thing about it. Because again, I haven't lied at all, but I wanted them to think that I'm lying about something.
Now, whereas for you,
and then her joy
the
again
card
about the
shot out
effect
of the
is
deck
so
and I caught it
wonderful.
at my fingertips. For you, gentlemen, my fingers are going to shoot into the deck, and I will capture your card.
This is a technique, I mentioned this in the first video of my first appearance, of clarifying what the effect is going to be. David Blaine is a master of this, and what it really does is it sets up the idea of what's going to happen in people's minds. Because I've done this trick before where I simply just dribble the cards and I reach in and I get one card, and it's fine, people are shocked and surprised. But it is so much more impressive when people know what's going to happen. So in my first appearance, I would set the deck down and I'd say, every card is now face up, and then spread them. In this case, I also added this of letting them know what's about to happen. I'm going to reach in and grab that card. So I added that in there, and I think that clarifies the effect in people's minds. Now, we're at this moment. So let me tell you what is happening right now. Because if you watch the other video of me practicing, I'd spent over 4 months every day, an hour a day, filming the video, time-lapsing it. I had a small group of friends that I would send the videos to. They would keep me honest, making sure that I was still practicing every single day. And I'm doing this for real. I'm authentically catching the card because I know where it is in the deck. It's exactly what Penn and Teller say later on. I know where the card is, and then I reach in and grab it. So because of this, I had spent those months practicing, rehearsing. The truth is that I was up to no more than about a 72% hit rate. No matter how many times I practiced, no matter what conditions we're in, I would do this 10 times and I would catch a single card 7 out of 10 times. I started practicing learning how to meditate, listen to Headspace every single day, and the moment that I'm there, I thought I would be calm, cool, relaxed. No, not even close. All of that went out the window. I mean, the moment that I'm there, it's just, my heart is racing. Now, something else happened here in a second. And people online comment, they go, wait a minute, the bottom card changed. And what you'll see here in a second is that as I'm playing, there's a 2 of spades, and now there's a king, and the bottom card changed from that cut. So let me explain to you, because is this a conspiracy theory? Are we in cahoots with Penn and Teller? Here's what actually happened, and the reason why that bottom card changes is I'm very nervous at this point. And I knew that if I spent too much time, and what I need to do is I need to quiet my head and dribble a few times to get the same rhythm as I'm going through the count in my head. So I know it takes me exactly 2 seconds to go through the cards, and I need to do this about 2 or 3 times in order to get to the same consistency. So I don't want to do it too many times because I think that'll get Penn and Teller to suspect that I'm doing this for real. And then what happened was I did it just once, I did it twice, and then I decided to quickly go for it. And as I did this, I knocked some cards out like that, totally flustered myself, and as I picked them up, okay, that's when my heart started racing. That's when everything went out the window. So that's why the bottom card changed. Now, they cut that part out because it's a really boring 10 seconds of me collecting the cards and of me frantically panicking in my head. So when they were editing it, I have no control over this. So when the editors made this, that's why you see the card change at the bottom. They just cut out one bad dribble there. Now, my heart is racing. I'm thinking, okay, now they know that I'm really doing this for real because I'm taking too long and I'm really trying to calm my breath. So now I made the adjustment, and I have a choice. At this moment, I could go for it and catch one card and be the wrong card, and then I'd have to do this again, and then I figure I'm done. And that's what I knew from the very first moment, that if I do this more than once, they're going to know I did it for real. So in my head, I wanted to do it only once, one take. So now, in my head, I'm so nervous, and I made this adjustment. where instead of trying to catch one card, which I have to hold my fingers precisely equal, I move my thumb back a little bit so that the index finger is protruding a little more, which means that I'm going to catch multiple cards. So I'm going to reach in, and the index finger allows me to grab a bunch of cards rather than just one. It was a decision I made on the spot. I was so nervous. I didn't want to do another try to mess up and pick it all up and do it again. I thought I have one take to do it, so instead of trying to catch one card, I decided to go for a bunch. Not happy with that decision, I can tell you right now. And everybody who comments online is like, oh, but you caught multiple cards, you're a failure. Yes, I am. I'm sorry I failed you. I practiced so long to catch one card, and I wish I would have done it right then in that moment. But with all the pressure and everything else, I caught like 4 or 5 cards, and that's okay. But I certainly wish that I could have been more relaxed and calm. I remember on the plane flying home, kicking myself over it and struggling over it. But at the end, I was very happy because the end result was, well, we'll talk about that in a second. The end result was that the technique was revealed essentially.
King of spades.
And I don't have to have him name the card, but I did.
King.
And then King of spades. So, I had to grab that really quick, and that's the other part, is at the moment that I grab and I realize I have multiple cards here, I very quickly had to fan them out, grab the card, turn it over. I had no need to have him name the card. And it's unfortunate that people think that the method is that they name the card and then I find it. Come see me live. Come to my show in Orlando. Bring me a deck of cards. You see me somewhere, I'd love to do this trick for you. I will do it for you with your cards. I'll catch just one card if I can. It's always different every time. And I got to tell you that as I was getting ready to film, I considered I was so nervous. I was like, well, maybe I should use the alternate methods. Maybe I should use something else that's more foolproof. And I remember a minute before going out there realizing, no, this is as close as I'm going to get to walking a tight rope without a net. All I'm risking is a paper cut. I'm not risking my life. But this nervousness is great. This is awesome. This is what life is about taking chances, high risk, high reward. I'm going to go out there, and whatever happens, happens. And so I'm happy that I did that. I'm happy that I didn't have a fallback plan, that I didn't use gimmicks, that I didn't use easy and cheap methods. I went for the most difficult one, and it could have been better. I could have caught just one card, but that's what life is about. And now when I do this trick in my show, it makes me so immensely nervous every single time, and the audience feels it. That's why I love this trick. And I was going to retire it, and I hadn't done it in a long time, but I'm so glad the show brought it back. So let's see. There's Allison's astonished face.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Now, at this moment, again, I hand them the deck. I shouldn't have done that. I should have hung on to the cards. I should have made them think that the deck was special, but I was just like, oh, I'm done. Here you go. Take the cards.
Thank you so much.
So now this is the part where we get to talk to Allison. And Allison talks to me, teach magician for maybe 5 to 10 minutes, but they only show a minute or two of the conversation. And yeah, of course, she asked me there, like, you've been practicing this a long time, and again, I'm like, I wish I would have said that. I wish I would have said I made this up last week.
Always in my hand. I'm always practicing. I created it to fool magicians, but I showed it kind of underground, didn't show it to too many people. And for 3 years now, I've been thinking what I can do to come back.
Yeah.
And I thought this is
it. It's difficult, really, because the problem is that I've hung out now with the guys, and they know what I can do. They know I can do sleight of hand. So the decision I have to make if I'm going to go back on Clueless is, do I do something really difficult? Do I do something really, really difficult where they know what I'm capable of sleight of hand? Or do I do something that's self-working and a gimmick and that's easy, and that would actually fool them because they wouldn't expect me to cheat that way? But yet everybody online and you watching this, you wouldn't be impressed by the trick because you know that it was a simple method. It was something that anybody can do. So that's the dilemma, to either do something really difficult and not fool them, do something easy and tricky and fool them, but then people online and everyone watching it afterwards is like, well, that was an okay trick. And even now, as I'm thinking about what else I could possibly do another time, it's very, very difficult to think about this. So at this moment, they're going through the cards. I'm talking to Allison. I'm trying to not look at them. I don't know what they're thinking, but I had a feeling at that point that they were going to bite through and figure out that.
Before then, no one knew who I was. I didn't know I was coming. But ever since then, it's changed my life because now people know, oh, you're the guy that fooled Penn and Teller. Well, let's hire you.
Yeah. It truly has. I am so grateful. Penn and Teller are the nicest, the most authentic, kind, giving people. They have been just unbelievable. And I've hung out with them so many times since the show in Vegas when they came to Orlando, hung out with them after the show. And this is what Penn's about to mention, is that I got a problem. We've hung out in hotel rooms in Florida with you. But that moment, and that's the moment that Penn actually convinced Teller, what you see, that frozen moment, is Penn just told Teller. I think he just does it.
Okay,
and Teller just turns and is
know.
like,
I
are
see
you
some
freaking
surprised
serious?
looks.
So
Let's
I think in
talk
this
to the
case, it was
boys.
Penn, the one that really
Gentlemen.
figured it out. So.
I want you to think about this, because if we do this bust on you, and if we're wrong, and if you fooled us again, I'm going to hurt you. So that kind, you know that little thing you did with the glue stick, and you did the little scissors, you did this, you did that? I'm telling you, we have a little list. I'll hit you in the head.
And the moment he
I'll
said,
kick
if
you
we
in
do
the
this
ass.
bust, I was like, yeah, they got me. Like the moment he said that line, I was like,
imagine those are laid out in front of you.
so
as
this
I
is all
say
cute.
this.
He's threatening my
Here's
life
the
again.
problem.
This is very nice. I appreciate
we've
the
hung
love.
out with you in hotel rooms with you doing this stuff for us. Amazing stuff. And there's a kind of a shortcut Teller
Penn's
and I
great.
use
So good.
talking about juggling and magic. Because juggling, you say you're going to do something and you do it. And in magic, you say you're going to do something and
Yeah, last time we hung out, it was literally from 12 to like 2:30 or 3 in the morning. We were hanging out, and I was just busting out because I didn't think I was even going to go back on Fool Us. This was a year after the first one. I was just showing them all the extra cool sleight of hand that I do. So it is unfortunate that they knew what I was capable of.
kind of a shortcut Teller and I use talking about juggling and magic. Because juggling, you say you're going to do something and you do it.
Did you see that? You see that look that changed on my face? I took a deep breath for a moment, and like my face changes. It's hilarious. That's the moment I knew. Now, here's what's cool about it. In my corporate talks, I talk about the difference between a juggler and a magician, and I talk to business people about how they want to be perceived. And so I've used this phrasing for years. And of course, Penn and Teller, they know this phrasing. Lots of magicians know about this. The idea behind it is that there's a difference between a magician and a juggler. And that while a juggler will spend decades practicing to show off their skills, as a magician, I have to spend decades to hide my skills. So it's incredibly not fair that we as magicians have to work for a long, long time and then not get the credit for what we're doing except from our peers and people who know our craft. Method and effect are everything. It's the language that magicians use to create, to teach, to communicate the way we do our magic. We always talk about effect first, then we work backwards to create the method, and it's one of the key topics that I talk about to business groups. So I loved the fact that they brought this up. And the moment that he said, we have an analogy of juggling and magic, that's when you see my whole face change. I have accepted my fate. I know I'm about to be busted. So you see me take a deep breath and kind of a little smile warms over my face because I know they have it 100%. And I love the fact that they brought it up because this is the truth, is that in most magic, magicians get credit for doing something they don't do. So.
Magic, you say you're going to do something and you don't. We know you can control a card anywhere. We know once you've picked a card, you can put it wherever you want.
Yep,
we know you could put that card where you want. We kind of sort of watched you do it. And then,
they did.
and this is the weirdest bust we've done, we think you actually did it. We don't think there was a trick.
This made me really
think
happy.
you
And you
knew
can
the
tell by the
location of
smile on my
card,
face.
And you've been practicing since you were 18 because you reached in and grabbed the thing.
And of course the
We
cursing
think
helps.
you actually did what you said you were going to do. And therefore, although you blew our minds and amazed us, you did not fool us. We think you are that good. So go ahead, tell me you're not that good.
So at this moment, I had a choice. And the producers tell you that once Penn and Teller give you their explanation, you have a choice. You can try to get them to tell you more. And if you challenge them on something, if you say, well, can you explain this more? Then they may as well reveal your whole trick. They tell you that if you don't mind your trick being revealed, you can push them and get them to tell you more. And there's been stories of magicians kind of like haranguing them and going back and forth. It doesn't make for great TV. And sometimes the magician comes off rude. So what I know and what most of my friends who've done the show know is that once they're talking to you and they're telling you what they think, they've already made their decision. You don't need to fight them on this. Now, I had the choice. Remember that one of the lies that I wanted them to believe in their head was that it was a memorized deck. And so at this moment, I could have been like, well, can you tell me more details? What do you mean I just did it? And if they would have said, well, we think you memorized the whole deck, I named the card and you pulled it out, then they would have been wrong. That was not the method. And so I could have pushed it there, but I thought, he just said it so well. What I'm going to do is I'm going to reframe what he said because he didn't really make it clear. So I wanted the audience, the world, to know that what you're saying is that I'm basically timing the cards as they fall and I can reach in and grab one. So what I tell all magicians that go on Fool Us is you have to practice what you're going to say at the end, whether they say you fooled them or not. So I had this in my head in the backup. I said,
I've been locked up for 20 years practicing and that I could precision dribble and catch any card that I want from anywhere in the deck?
Kind of, sort of ish, yeah.
And Penn's like, okay, I'll kind of give that to you. Because
You're 100% right.
if we were to really focus on that, yes, I can do that. Like there are methods I have for magicians that are boring for television, but that are even more open and fair, and it's a short trick. I do exactly what I just said. And I love that fact because I'm not hiding something here, I'm revealing it. And magicians now come up to me and ask me to do this trick for them with their deck of cards, and I can and I do. And so his reaction was really funny there. I just wanted to reframe that of the precision dribbling. And he said, kind of, sort of, yeah. And then the most unexpected thing happened, which was at this moment they got up and they came on stage. And I don't know if they've done that for anyone else, but I know it's very rare. Usually if you don't fool them, they sit in their seats and they clap. And the fact that they came up and they gave me a hug, I cannot tell you how emotional I felt about that later on and how grateful I was in the moment, because they truly are the greatest people, and they've created this show in order to give magicians like myself, who would never be on national television, a chance to shine, a chance to be seen by the world. And my first appearance really transformed my career. After 15 years, I became an overnight sensation, and people are still calling me. They see the video, they say, oh, you do speaking for businesses, come present for us. So I am forever grateful. And when they came up there to give me a hug, it was awesome. And there's one more thing that I did not hear in the moment until I watched the video. And that's the next thing that Penn says, and a few people have picked up on it in the comments. As he's walking back into the audience, he says, he's better than you think. Now, that could be kind of insulting, because it's like, he's better than you think. Like, oh, you guys think he's really terrible. He's better than you think. But what he's really saying there is that, again, magicians hide the secrets. And so you don't know what he's really actually doing that. And the fact that he says this at this moment, I'm telling you that, blew my mind. When I saw that on video later on, blew my mind. So then there's the walk-off. I get to wave, get to do all that. And I tell you what, thank you for watching. I hope that you get to kind of see, I put out the first reaction video to my first performance, and I got great feedback. People really enjoyed it. It's not too often that the actual performers get to watch their own video. I realize that. I don't get to put out that much content on YouTube, but I hope that this was an interesting thing for you to watch and see some behind-the-scenes information. And I definitely hope that more magicians do this video as well who've been on the show, because I know there's a lot of reaction videos that are fun to watch, but I think it's really cool to hear from the performer's point of view, and there's a lot of great magicians that have been on the show that I'd love to hear their thoughts. I'd love to hear what was going through their head and why they created it. I'm truly grateful. If I haven't said this 10 times already, I'm grateful to Penn and Teller, and I hope that while in performing this trick, I gave you an idea that magic can be difficult, it can be complex, and that the effects that we create can also be done in many other ways that are simple, and oftentimes magicians will use the simpler method, and unfairly we will get credit for powers we don't have and things that we do that we don't really do. And so by flipping this around, and by starting off with knowing that if this method was going to be revealed, it would be a positive, and that positive for me and for magic, I'm really proud of this moment. I'm grateful to Penn and Teller, and thank you so much for watching. And come, bring me your deck of cards. I'll do the trick for you. I promise you. You bring me your cards, and I will reach in and I will get your card. All right? Thanks for watching. Take care.